the boys, having a good time. You always got a friend when you're a friend of mine. Drinking with the boys, I hope it never ends. Always at my best when I'm with all my friends.
Well, hello and happy Hanukkah to all of my people out there. This is Drinking with the Boys. We are live at Two Brothers Bar and Grill.
That's Chase. I'm Corey. What's up, guys? It's Sunday evening in Texas, and we're about to have a Cowboys-Raiders game. It's looking like Christmas out there. Perfect football weather. What you got?
Dude, the football weather is here, man.
It was a little rainy, cold, gray yesterday. Good Christmas weather.
Dude, I love it. There's a chance of snow next week.
I know, right?
For the Texas,
there is
Dallas
a potential
area.
For some places in Texas to have that white Christmas.
But, we're gone to this Raiders and Cowboys stuff. We've got one more game until Zeke is back.
Yeah, Cowboys-Raiders could be a good matchup today. It's going live in about 2 hours. We got two teams essentially with very mediocre, disappointing performances this year so far. Cowboys 7-6, Raiders 6-7. Both of these teams had high expectations last year. Really good seeds in the playoffs, but not so great this year. So we're going to see. I think Raiders, because of their division, how incredibly crappy it is, still potentially have like a 1 in a million chance for the playoffs. Pretty slim though, because the Chiefs won. I think Chiefs are 8-6. They're 6-7. It'd be really hard to pass them. But the Cowboys definitely have playoff hopes. We're gonna get into that. So for the game tonight, there's a couple key players like Amari Cooper for the Raiders, wide receiver. He's out. And then David Irving's been playing really well on the defensive line for the Cowboys, and he's out still with a concussion.
And that concussion deal is kind of a strange thing because concussions affect people differently. And depending on where you're at and things, they'll talk about it where, it's usually about a week and you're back to normal, but there's some guys that it will stick around for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and, that's the modern NFL, for better or for worse. So many people, are able to point a finger at the NFL's disciplinary policies and their injury, policies and the concussion policies and the hits policies, and they say, hey, we'll talk about this in a second too, that guys are diving at the knees of other players and not getting a fine, or guys are getting 6-game suspensions for things that, are very questionable. We got, we had these conversations about all these different fights that were breaking out in the NFL.
Right.
Who gets a game suspension for this, that, and the other. Gronk did one. We got cornerbacks and wide receivers. Well, the concussion protocol is one thing that the NFL is doing good. Guys like Babe Offenberg this week are pointing out finding some of the old footage of, hits he took that were really similar to that Tom Savage one last week.
Right.
So, he got sacked and they drove him to the ground, and in both instances, the back of the head just slams against the turf. Well, Tom Savage, for, the whole world to see, and it blew up on Twitter and everything, and, are there doctors checking them out, and then these independent doctors are being too lenient on the players, and the team doctor held them back and stuff like that? Well, and then in Laufenberg's instance, what he said, that he couldn't even remember throwing a touchdown pass 2 plays later. Right. After that, there was no protocol. There was no, everyone just told you to tough it up unless you had actually broken your leg. And so, a guy like David Irving, who it doesn't look like a bad hit the other game, all of a sudden, report comes out that he's got concussion and he never passes all the tests, and so no, he's not playing. So it's for the good of the players. It's okay that David Irving's not playing. It's probably for his long-term health. But
Corey, I'm going to take a second here.
Can complicate.
I don't know if you heard it. Antonio Brown is actually in a hospital.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I did.
They took him to the hospital. Very different situation. That pretty much can kind of tell you it may be a little bit longer before you see Antonio Brown on a football field. Usually, if you're going to the hospital, it's something that you've got to take some precautionary stuff. But no, back to the concussion protocol. That's something that's been fairly talked about quite often this past season. Talking about Russell Wilson going through the concussion protocol. It was something that they were talking about only took him like 5 minutes to go through or something like that. And I actually spoke with an athletic trainer who said the concussion protocol should take you about 15 minutes to go through.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, a standard drive in the NFL is how long you would be out. He was out for what? A play or two?
Like 5 minutes of real time?
I think they had like a 3 and out, and then that was it, and he was back on the field.
Yeah.
So it's something not to joke around with.
And not every big hit that ends up near your head ends up in a concussion.
Right.
And so it's just, and like little things like you can be a catcher in baseball and you can kind of get knocked over and all of a sudden you hit your head wrong.
Right.
I mean, you've got a big helmet in that instance too, a big mask. But
that's where I got mine. I know with my experience with concussions, there's different things to look for, and I had one that was a pretty bad one that I was out for about a month.
Yeah.
Nausea and throwing up, and like it was immediate.
Right.
But there's sometimes that it would linger for. It was just kind of that pissed off pain. Like it's numbing.
Maybe there's kind of a different like in the moment. Players might still be adrenaline. They might do fine. It needs to be kind of like two different tests, but like the week-long thing, it seems like is where David Irving failed. It feels like kind of what tests they might give them in the game to see that they're doing okay.
Right.
Is different than if it's out of the game and we're looking at him. Well, no, over the course of a week's time, he hasn't really shown that he's perfect.
Right.
So it might be a different standard.
I mean, imagine the coming off of a concussion is very much like probably the worst hangover you could ever have. That right there between that and teetering on a migraine is really the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
And so that's why the David Irving thing is kind of leery. Is there are players who across all sports that have had concussions that they may be out for longer than 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. Let's get into the rest of that game. We got Sean Lee back. We don't have Zeke Elliott back.
Just having Sean Lee back last week was incredible.
Oh yeah, and that's absolutely been the story. One of the big storylines, I think, looking at the Cowboys this year is the night and day difference in having Sean Lee and not having Sean Lee. He's just an incredibly helpful guy. Playing linebacker for the Cowboys, he really shows. So speaking of linebacker, early draft look. Now that players have declared and seasons are over in college, has started happening, but some of the local sports guys have been posting a little bit. And so one of the guys they've shown a light on is a linebacker from Georgia, Roquan Smith, and he's probably going to be top 20 pick in the NFL draft, if not higher. Well, people are obviously going to find some good and some bad. We'll see how it all shakes out where he gets drafted, but a really high. What we're seeing is how impactful a quality linebacker is on your defense. And guys even guys like Ed Reed. I'm not trying to put these guys in the same conversation, but one of the conversations that we've had about the Cowboys is, hey, we lost a lot of veterans in our secondary. Maybe we lost some of that communication and that cohesion and that, the veteran smarts back there. We lost David Carr. We lost, or Brandon Carr that other safety.
Church.
And Wilcox. Yeah. Church, all these guys. So we have those guys who are Skandrick and who's our Byron Jones. We've got guys in the secondary. Xavier Woods is playing well. Chidobe Awuzie is playing well. Those are rookies. I think our secondary is fine. We're looking at the draft, and the Cowboys are the 17th pick right now. If the Cowboys keep winning out, well, then they're going to end up about the 20th pick. If they lose a couple, win one, lose one, who knows what happens. They might end up 13th or 14th pick. There might be an impact player for next year that you miss out on or get in on, depending on the performance the rest of the year. And one of the things that one of the things I feel is that the Cowboys aren't a Super Bowl threat. I'm looking at the NFC, and I'm looking at the Rams, who seem to be way better. The Rams beat us earlier in the year. The Rams are absolutely laying a whooping on the Seahawks, 40-7. I'm looking at the Seahawks, who are getting whooped, but are still a talented team who could totally beat the Cowboys if you flipped a coin. I'm looking at the Panthers, who are talented, the Falcons, who are good. The Saints are absolutely looking like could be a Super Bowl team. The Vikings are good.
Vikings clinched today, correct?
Yeah, exactly. We got the Eagles, the Vikings. There's so many good teams up at the top of the NFC. I'm saying, what's the point in fighting for the 6th wildcard seed just to lose again and continue that whole, like, oh, good job, Jason Garrett, and then bad job, Jason Garrett?
Well, I was listening this morning.
Let's just lose a couple.
Right. I was listening this morning on the radio, and there was a stat that came across that there have been 34 different teams to play in the to win in the Super Bowl. And only 4 of them were wild cards.
34 teams.
There was 30, I guess, with different teams going in and out.
Yeah.
That was what the stat said, was that there was 34 different teams that had played in the Super Bowl, and only 4 of those came from the wild card.
We have seen that a few times with, like, the Giants were the wild card team and they won.
Right. So the whole argument that all you have to do is make it to the tournament, make it to make it to the playoffs is kind of bullshit, because
it happens,
takes
but it's
a little
not
bit
common.
more. No, it can, but stats and everything is against you at that point. So it's kind of like, I don't think I would take the wins. And that was another argument that I've heard, was, would you win out with the chance of making the playoffs, not guaranteeing the playoffs? Would you rather win out with a chance to go to the playoffs, or would you rather tank and get in the top 10 to maybe 12, 9th to 12th pick?
Yeah, and that's exactly the thing, is if the results are exactly the same, we miss the playoffs, then, and maybe coaches are not feeling like they're about to get fired. That's a whole nother conversation. I'm sure we'll have that in the off season about Marinelli and all this stuff. But if the coaches are feeling confident and the players are still getting their reps, if you miss the playoffs, well, then the point is to get better players in the draft. Like, there's no other point if you miss the playoffs. So, if you're going to be the 16th, maybe 6-6, those 12 teams are in 32. That means 20th. You can be like the 19th, 20th pick and still miss the playoffs. So what's the point in being that? Or why don't we get the 11th pick in the draft and get some good quality players? Right,
and that's the thing is, also there's been a lot of discussion on getting Jason Garrett out of that coaching spot. Things have been popping up all over Twitter and Instagram with names like Fire Jason Garrett and stuff like that. It seems to be a call by the Cowboys fans and a lot of people that follow the Cowboys and report on the Cowboys in the media that Jason Garrett kind of fluked and got like this thing last year that everything kind of worked together, but it wasn't really coaching. I know he was coach of the year and Jerry Jones keeps talking about it, but he said the same thing about Wade Phillips, and he said the same thing about everybody else up until the day that they fired him. It's kind of a thing that, if they lose out, maybe we can get a new coach. Maybe we can get a new coaching system. Yeah. And talks, too, of, how Tony Romo may get out of the broadcasting deal and get into some coaching. Yeah, dude, he's got such a good gig. Yeah, I think I would. Jerry was actually answering to that. Tony clearly has the mind of a coach and loves those aspects, but Tony could stick in this job for 10, 15 years and be set for life. He's already pretty much set for life, more set. But it's a cushy job, and there's not as much pressure. There's a Patriots receiver with actually has hands, and he lays out and catches it like Dez didn't or did. No, but
why be in that risk of like the whole 4-year cycle of win or go home that NFL coaches face?
Right.
Just stick to what you're doing. Yeah, maybe when your kids grow up, if you want to try to be a coordinator, just like one last hoorah.
Right.
Go for it for 5 years. See what you got. But no, that last little follow up, real quick before we move along. We got all the way since 1990. We've had a 4 seed 4 times. We've had a 5 seed 1 time, a 6 seed twice. So that's talking 27 years, and only 3 of those wild card spots. So yeah, totally not very common, but it has happened a few times recently.
I'll tell you what. I'm just gonna say this because
Cowboys aren't making the Super Bowl. So
no, and I'm gonna tell you right now who needs to have their fucking ass kicked up in between their shoulder blades, and that's anything that's connected to the Seattle Seahawks. I'm sitting here watching, playback of all this stuff, and especially after last game, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But they're looking like a joke of a team, led by a joke of a man known as Pete Carroll. He lets this shit go on game in and game out. He's got guys clipping in the legs. This game, he's got 2 or 3 people who's already gotten personal fouls, unsportsmanlike conduct. He's out screaming.
I feel like I'm looking at 3 different timings on all the TVs,
right.
But it's kind of confusing.
Right. So Pete Carroll is a joke. Pete Carroll should have been buried at USC. And that's it. Like
he slipped away just before the fire got started.
Smack your fucking gum like an 8th grade girl who's a valley girl. Sit up there and chew and everybody loves me. No one likes you unless they're in Seattle or they play for you. Pete Carroll is a joke.
Yeah,
and here's the guy. Here's the deal, Seahawks. You don't like how things are going? Stop sucking. If you can't handle it, Quentin Jefferson got ejected and jumped up into the crowd because somebody threw a beer. I get that. You're heated up and you're mad. But you just showed everybody that you don't have enough fucking sense to sit there and man up and walk out.
Yeah.
Had you shut your fucking mouth and left the field after you got ejected,
you go head down right into the tunnel.
Yep.
No, he was jawing with the fans, and that's why you got a beer thrown at him.
So last week, over $55,000 worth of fines were handed out to the Seattle Seahawks, and not a goddamn dime
to Michael Bennett. No, he was diving at linemen's legs, fake-ass excuses about the ball was loose. No, he was like 3 yards away from the ball. It wasn't even remotely. Chase touched on it. The Seahawks were looking bad, and a lot of people were questioning that. Hey, if we're going to talk about player safety, to loop back to what we were saying earlier, then diving into players' knees got to be inexcusable as well. So we got to be We got to be suspending or fining for behavior like that, and it didn't happen
across the board. It
didn't happen.
Across
and there were national radio hosts, calling him out and saying, "Look, he went nuclear on Vegas, on this whole Las Vegas police incident that happened, and made this whole written thing about how this is why we're kneeling, blah blah blah." And then more video comes out, and everyone's like, "Oh well, hey, maybe shouldn't have been an idiot." And the NFL looks like he's scared. When you have a player who does have a national reputation, and he's got this whole reputation for being a rights activist or whatever, and he's the guy who turns out to be dirty, then you can't be too scared to fine him. You can't be too scared to suspend him. He doesn't run you.
Well, and that's kind of seeming to be the thing. It's like, I feel like, and I don't really know how to say it without coming off as it just being, but it is what it is. What happens when the one white player does something? What you imagine now with the BLM movement and the rights and all this stuff and the Michael Bennett shit, popping up, that guy's going to get crucified.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they are going to hang him up to dry. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a guy who is a player who is not of color that gets some type of domestic violence or some type of deal. He's going to be hung out, left alone, and blackballed, and be made an example of, because this is where the league has gone.
Yeah.
We're scared to fine. We're scared to this because somebody had an incident that wasn't even football related, wasn't NFL related, wasn't like somebody in the NFL did it, or looked at him because he was a black man out on the street or something. It was Las Vegas police, but because of his position in the world as an NFL player, he now has a microphone and a platform to speak with. Now it's kind of like everybody's scared to do anything because how is it going to be labeled?
Yeah. It's all very complicated. Let's get away from the NFC. We've got the Steelers and Patriots. It's looking like a good game. It's close. There was a missed extra point that might come back to be crucial. Do you see any other teams in the AFC that are going to match up for the championship game other than the Steelers and Patriots?
Man, they were showing glimpses of it again last night, the Chiefs.
The Chiefs played really well last night, and they could totally end up winning their division. They had a terrible, 6-game losing streak or something? It was absolutely awful. The wheels came off, but they won last night. Maybe they're resurrecting their season, maybe not. We don't know if they're for real, but we do know that they were looking incredible at the beginning of the year, and people were definitely putting them in that, AFC Championship picture. So if they could revive that, yeah, they'd be a contender. But there's too much unknown. Another unknown is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have played really well and will probably win that division. And they're going by Saxonville. They got a good defense. They have some veterans in the secondary, like Barry Church. They've got some young linemen that are getting sacks, causing problems. Blake Bortles even threw for 300 yards this year, earlier today, I think.
Right.
And so, like, if they have a quarterback, that's the whole thing is like, oh, quick, get Eli Manning over there, or get Tony Romo to Jacksonville, or somebody. If somebody could play quarterback for Jacksonville, then they could actually make some noise. Well, it seems like maybe it's just one game. Maybe they have a little chance. Maybe if with Antonio Bryant going out, they could be that contender in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, this season has been all about the injuries and things like that. You had that strong look there by the Texans, and then
Texans
Watson
exactly.
deal
That's who came to my mind. Watt and Deshaun Watson.
Right. I'll tell you who's definitely not going to make it this year, and that's the Indianapolis Colts.
No, they suck. They're actually showing that AFC playoff picture right there. Baltimore beat Browns today. They're on the outside looking in.
What a game last week with them.
The Browns?
No, the
Ravens.
The Bills game with all the snow.
Oh, yeah.
That looked like a lot of fun.
That was fun. Let's move along. When you mentioned injuries, Carson Wentz, if you haven't heard, he injured his ACL, so he's out for the year. So the Philadelphia Eagles have the best record in the NFC, but their MVP candidate, their leader, their quarterback, Carson Wentz, is out. So that absolutely throws some serious doubts on their ability to make a run in the playoffs. It just doesn't happen. That's your number one thing, is you need that star quarterback to take you to the Super Bowl. So, people are counting them out. That's why all those other teams that I mentioned a minute ago are real contenders.
I also want to do something real quick. Yeah. I want to thank the network of Fox for turning off that Rams Seahawks game and putting A Christmas Story Live on.
Hey, there you go.
That is actually looks like it's a little bit way more entertaining.
Still over there.
Yeah, it's on. That's probably on the Sunday ticket. But if you're actually watching Fox 4 here in Dallas, Texas, they switched her over. They were like, "Yeah, we're not going to put a pause on that."
I mean, it was a 35-point game.
Well, and it's also it's the fucking Seahawks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an absolute blowout in the fourth quarter. You might as well switch.
And also, Campbell's Chunky Soup, get rid of the Richard Sherman thing, denounce Richard Sherman, and I'll eat your soup again.
There you go. That'd be a good idea. Speaking of eating, we are at Two Brothers Bar and Grill. I don't think we ever mentioned them. They're a good hosts, and things are definitely looking good in here. They're a little bit festive, not too festive.
They've got a Cowboys thing going on tonight. Cowboys watch party.
Yeah, right. They always have that Cowboys watch party. They're getting their little table set up. They're gonna have a kind of an end restaurant broadcast, a little bit of commentary, maybe some prizes. We've chatted with those guys before. They're good guys. So come out to Two Brothers Bar and Grill on Preston Road. Barely Plano, almost
Yes,
Frisco,
right there on the Plano-Frisco line.
right next to
Actually
121.
tucked behind Cowboy Chicken.
Another good place that Chase
Love
wants
some
to
Cowboy
broadcast from.
Yeah, because, Cowboy Chicken's where it's at, man. Whole chicken, $8.
Right. So Two Brothers is a good host for us, and we appreciate them. So come check them out. Let's wrap the stuff up. We're talking about playoff teams in the NFC. One of those is the Panthers. Panthers are dealing with some organizational struggles right now. Their owner, Jerry Richardson, is being investigated. Now, I don't know if it's by the league or if it's by the
let's be honest.
actual
Everyone in 2017 is being investigated.
Let's put it
Mario
that way.
Batali,
Yeah.
I know this is off the court, but he made an apology today.
Yeah.
And at the end of the apology, he was like, hey, make things a little bit better. Here's your cinnamon roll recipe, America. And he threw out a cinnamon roll recipe.
Did he really?
I am going to make his sexual harassment cinnamon rolls and bring them to the next show. And let's see. And Corey, I want you to bring a different cinnamon roll, and I want you to tell me, does the sexual harassment cinnamon roll taste better?
A little taste of disappointment or a taste of
A little taste of shame.
shame.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think New York Times already called 2017 year of the apology, basically.
Right.
It's interesting times we live in. But so I don't know how it's going down, whether or not the Panthers organization is investigating internally, and maybe Richardson isn't quite as meddling as Jerry Jones, because Jerry Jones is the Cowboys organization and the Jones family. So there would be no way possibly for to have an independent investigation within the organization if it was Jones who did something. But Bleacher Report is saying that there was racial remarks, sexual misconduct, all kinds of workplace misconduct. One story I read talked about him being really inappropriate with women who would come in to the workplace, whether or not they're reporters or, all sorts of people come into NFL organizations to do business. And I think he's trying to be this Southern gentleman, but actually he's just kind of getting really handsy. And it's not okay, and that's going to be an ongoing story for the next 6 months probably.
Right, yeah, there was some weird shit the dude was doing, like asked to shave a girl's legs.
Not okay.
Yeah.
It's very new. We don't know too much about it, but we do know that there are some salacious details, and the Panthers are having to look within
not
themselves.
To say anything, all of this stuff has to be looked into, because especially now with it being such a heightened thing this year in the world, you have to kind of look at these things, and I don't know. That's another story, another episode, and another. I don't want to end up in the Huffington Post, so I won't make comments. But I think some of this stuff may have been brought into light, which it should be if it's accurate. And if you have multiple stories, and it seems like that.
No, there's definitely weight to it. We just don't know a whole lot of details
right,
yet.
But I always thought it was weird, because I remember one time being up in New York, and I saw him, Mario Batali, and Matt Lauer all hanging out. And I was just like, something's fishy.
No, that's not the good old boys club.
No, it was definitely not the good. I guarantee you all of them want to make America great again.
I think we've covered almost everything in our show notes except for the
Zeke and Cabo.
Except for the Zeke stuff, and that is what has me riled up today. So I don't know if this is hot or not, or Corey's temperature is rising segment, or whatever the hell you want to call it. But some idiots in the local radio market, and I'm going to name names, Ben Rogers, are advocating for stupid decisions, and thankfully other people who have actually played the damn game, like Jesse Hawley, are getting on the radio just a few hours ago and saying, no, that's some bullshit. It's like, hey, are you paying him? Yes. Then play him. Like, goddamn, it's real simple.
Well, I can see the logic.
So the
behind
setup,
it.
we'll present the logic, and then I'll break it down for you how stupid it is. So the setup, essentially, we're gonna pull this stuff up, is that Zeke has been out for 6 weeks, and theoretically, if the Cowboys lose tonight and their playoff hopes are all but dashed, then you have to reevaluate the last 2 games of your season. Do you go into tank mode? Do you still try to keep, a decent face? What are you playing for after that? And then essentially, what we've been talking about for 6 weeks is, hey, can we do good enough to where once Zeke comes back that we can win out? Like, oh man, he's going to have fresh legs and everything is going to be great. We're going to get Zeke back, and then we're going to win right into this, playoffs with a fresh running back and everything. It's going to be actually a competitive advantage. Well, guys like Ben Rodgers are saying, oh yeah, I don't know, maybe we just sit him because this is the thing. I can't find it right now, but
someone didn't do their homework.
Oh, whatever. The thing is, yeah, like Jesse always said, if you are playing the player, then why are you gonna sit him? The only thing that would keep you out for more, like all the way into the middle of the season next year, is if you blow out your ACL, and you can't just because it's an injury. Yes, it's been a high injury year. That's irrelevant. You can't live your life in fear. You have a star running back, 2nd year in the league. He's really good, but it's not like he's some savvy veteran. It's not like he's some injury-prone player like Tony Romo. It's not like he's got a lot of mileage on his legs. No, fresh, 2nd year, star player. You're paying him a hell of a lot of money. I looked it up. I'm pretty sure he's 9th highest paid running back in the NFL. No, you're not paying him to sit on the ground. He sells you a lot of jerseys. He makes the Cowboys exciting. You're going to play him. You're not going to live your life in fear of injury just because you're not going to make the playoffs. Because the whole thing is, remember what we've been talking about for these entire 6 weeks is, hey, how much is Dak relying on Zeke? Or has Dak been able to grow as a quarterback in the last 6 weeks since he hasn't had Zeke around and he's had to, play without a star running back? Well, no, we need to get those two back on the same page. There is something to be said for positive vibes going into the offseason. I just cannot understand at all
I think that's
why you wouldn't play him. Sit him in the 4th quarter if you want. If you want to lose a game, I don't know. Sit him in the 4th quarter. Take safeties if you want to lose a game. But you play your star running back.
Well, there was, Travis Frederick is on one of the radio stations here in Dallas a lot, every week. And the thing that I heard him talk about was about momentum and how they don't try to believe in momentum, that they try to play based on the week. They don't try to focus on whatnot. Like the different week, different mindset, and that's not how they focus on it. But in defense of Ben Rodgers, not saying that Ben Rodgers is right, Ben Rodgers is looking at a situation in a collective 3 sports. So if you think about the 3 major sports, football, basketball, baseball, you'll hear about baseball teams shutting a pitcher down, going into playoffs, getting a more extended rest, skipping a start, getting a long reliever to do a spot start.
In the middle of a season.
Or in the middle of a season, or towards an end.
When you've already got it wrapped up.
When you have, when you're 15 games back, or, the next...
Or 15 games up.
Yeah, you're 15 games up, they'll start resting guys. They do the same thing in basketball. Basketball's trying to eliminate that because there are players who, teams that will be coming through Dallas towards the end of the season, toward playoffs, they're going to be resting their main players.
You know who's not sitting in the NBA? Young players like Dennis Smith Jr., young players like Russell Westbrook, young, strong players without an injury history aren't the ones who are sitting.
Right. Derrick Rose does a lot of sitting.
Well, Derrick Rose might retire for how we know.
Right.
Guys like LeBron, guys like Tim Duncan, guys like Kobe, those are the guys who are resting extra.
Right. So, for
Monty Ginobili, he's 45 years old.
For his thought process, a lot of times that's what they'll do. They'll bring in other players and things like that to fill the gap if they're either way up or they're way down. So, in his mindset, that's it. But you also need to think about what you were saying, carrying momentum in. For me, I really don't want the Cowboys to win. I want draft picks. I want new coaching staff. I want new things that are going to drive the team. And I don't think that that's going to happen winning because I don't see us making the playoffs. The teams that we need to lose aren't losing.
Nope.
New Orleans is not losing. Atlanta, even though I wish they would because of their
Look,
weird
anything
looking
can happen, but yeah, Atlanta's not a likely team to lose to the 4-9 Buccaneers. We got some madness going on in Two Brothers Bar and Grill. The Patriots just scored to go ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it looks like
they were 27-24, and they got it down to inside the 15-yard line.
Yeah, Roethlisberger's got the ball. It looks like 30 seconds left in the game. Can you confirm that? 34 seconds left?
34 seconds left in the game.
So Roethlisberger only has one possession left. He's down on the 20. Looks left, he throws, and we've got a broken... Dude, that's a short passing play. He breaks a tackle. Actually, that's not even a tackle. Guy runs out of steam. He's run 50 yards already. He's totally running out of steam. He goes to 15 and just gets hugged down all the way to the 10, really. Yeah, he ran from the 20 all the way there, so that was a heck of a run.
Right, on a.
I don't know if that's Smith-Schuster. He's got a lot of letters on the back of his... can you see that? Yeah, I think that's him.
Yeah.
He tightrope that sideline like a pro. I thought he was speedy, man.
He
I knew he ran a
tightrope
lot,
that
but
one.
he shouldn't have been gassed that much. I've seen who's that old guy?
Man, I think we need to get off this podcast and go finish
watch some football.
We're watching football. So no, that basically brings us up to where we're at. So we'll be covering the Oakland Raiders and Dallas Cowboys aftermath next week.
For sure. I want to clarify. Ben Rogers said that's a great point to Brian Broaddus' tweet that said, I'll be honest, if they don't win tonight, I consider not playing them. So actually, a lot of it goes on Brian Broaddus, who we love.
And there's a touchdown.
Steelers are going to win the game, it looks like. Brian Broaddus we love for his draft looks.
I don't think Steelers are going to win the game.
Huh?
I don't think they're going to win it.
Well, Chase is a good Patriots fan. He likes some Matt Patricia. It's a good game either way.
Right. So, but thanks, guys, for joining us on this episode.
Did we get to say that Zeke looks real sexy coming out of Cabo?
That's what you got to say.
Okay.
I didn't say it.
Cool. I mean, he's ripped.
Right. No, hopefully
he's been working out.
Hopefully this will be a win, and maybe this can bring up some stuff on what do you do with Zeke? What do we do with the rest of this year? So what's your game prediction? What's the score?
I got a low-scoring, messy one, and I'm going to say Cowboys eke it out, but we're still really disappointed with this, performance. 17-14.
Well,
or like 17-13.
I was gonna say right around that. I'm gonna say less than 20. The win is gonna be 20 to something. But I'm gonna go for the Cowboys. So guys, thanks for joining us. Next week will be Christmas week, so we will be getting together with you guys. So if you celebrate Hanukkah, happy Hanukkah. If you don't, wait, and we'll wish you a Merry Christmas. And we'll be back with some more cold beers and curveballs. All right, guys. So until then,
enjoy drinking with the boys.
Drinking with the boys. Come and listen to Cold Beers and Curveballs because we have a lot of cool shit to talk about on that one too.
Do it and go find us on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating or give us a comment and tell us what we can do better.
Right. Drinking with the Boys for Facebook and Instagram. And DRNKNW the Boys at Twitter. So definitely check us out. Drink some beer, watch some football, and enjoy life. And we'll see you guys next time.